Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox Reviews and the triumphant return from Geneva of Watches Live. Tonight, our theme is the best of the best, high horology and nothing but. I think you might find tonight we're going to have some surprises in store, as high horology might not cost quite what you have in mind. That said, if you want Perpetual calendar, tourbillon, and the absolute best of Switzerland and Germany, you've come to the right place. All right. Live questions, live answers, gifts as ever, and of course, I'll mention how you get into our raffle. If you haven't emailed me your name, your mailing address, and your phone number at tim@watcheslive.com, or better yet, tim@thewatchbox.com, because we know that one works, then just send me that information and I will draw at least 3, possibly as many as 4 times during the show tonight. All of that said, I think it's important to note that the watches we've got here are all for sale. Everything you see can be yours. We've got the likes of Audemars, Piguet, FP Journe, 2 German brands, not 1, and of course my personal favorite, Jaeger LeCoultre. Let me fire up the stream and see who's joining us now. And I can see our live chat box is firing up. Nolan Reed joining us from Atlanta, Georgia. You are first, my man. Juan Huertas, Tom P., Stanley, Matt Forster, Vincent Tan, Jordan, and Russell. Welcome, guys. Welcome all. All right, let's jump straight into tonight's watches. Appropriately enough, jumping hours and jumping seconds. I'm not going to mince words. The most exciting new watch of 2017 was probably the FP Journe Vagabondage III. Part of the tonneau-shaped Vagabondage series, first launched in 2005, this one was a world premiere, a combination of jump hours and the first ever continuous jumping seconds. The watch is both a new installment in the Vagabondage trilogy and the last chapter of this story. Now, the watch you see right here is the platinum version. Curiously, and continuing a trend that started with the Vagabondage II, one more example. Yeah. Okay, you've seen those mystery dial reversos where the painting suddenly appears and disappears. Just consider it a tribute to that. A wonderful genre, if niche. We're back with Watches Live, guys. We were talking about the Vagabondage III. My lav died. My crew got me back up and running in about a minute. Are they the best in the business or what? So Vagabondage III, let's talk a little bit more about this watch because, again, a landmark as the first ever continuously jumping second. The Vianney Halter designed Harry Winston Opus 3 had jumping seconds for the last 4 seconds of the hour, or the last 4 seconds of the minute, I should say. This was a world premiere, caliber 1514 in rose gold. 40-hour power reserve. Now, the interesting thing about this watch is that it feels like you're winding a Lange Zeitwerk, which is to say you've got a power reserve that's not overly long, about 36 hours in the Zeitwerk, 40 hours here, but because the mainspring is so thick and so meaty, it feels like you're winding a small clock. Now, jumping back to the dial side, there are a couple of features that are worth mentioning. First, the Vagabondage series from the first in 2005 never featured FP Journe's name on the dial side. Initially, this was because the movement which he originally designed for Cartier, wasn't suitable as a chronometer, and he only wanted to put his name on chronometer-grade watches. Well, in time, he managed to improve the movements to meet the standard he had in mind, but it became a little bit of a tradition to feature the name exclusively on the caseback, where you'll see the name of the man himself, never on the dial side. All right, let's talk a bit about its counterpart in rose gold, because we do have two of these tonight. Okay, this is the one that's made in 68 parts, or 68 pieces in the series, so this is actually the less common of the two. Now you can see this one might even be a better match because the combination of soft rose gold tones on dial and case are beautifully consonant with the rose gold of the caliber 1514 on the back. Now, the way FP Journe reference numbers work for movements is 15 is the size of the movement in French lean, so one lean for approximately 2.25 millimeters, and then 14 is the year, the second two numbers in the reference, the year he started work on the movement. So it took 3 full years to bring this watch to realization. This will be the last of the Vagabondage series, and my cup runneth over in that I'm able to bring you both versions of the watch beating in sync, and my heart beats with them. This is a sensational watch and a complication I absolutely adore. Okay, for those of you just joining us now, thank you for sticking with us through the little bit of a hiccup we had. Let me see, am I muted right now? I'm good, all right. So we have more Journe on the table, but let me remind you, if you want to enter our raffle tonight, if you've already sent me your name, mailing address, and your phone number, you're good. You're already entered. Previous entrants and even previous winners can participate. So I've got you in my database here, and I'm thumbing through it as it grows. Send your name, your mailing address, and your phone number to tim@thewatchbox.com, and I'm going to do 4 drawings during the show. We may as well do one now, since I made you put up with my tech problems. All right, jumping into the pool. Let's see who is reaching out right now. Okay. Problems. All right, jumping into the pool. All right, let's see who is reaching out
Jordan
right now. A, you are our first winner of the night. You're from my old haunt, Miami, Florida. I'm jealous. As warm as it is up here in Philly right now, and it hit 60 today, it's still not Miami. Unseasonably warm weather notwithstanding, I expect to be freezing again shortly. Well, you will be enjoying curbside cafe weather with a gift to be determined. I actually ran out of keepsakes and giveaways here, so I'm going back to headquarters tomorrow and I'm sending everyone a mystery gift with one qualifier. The mystery gift will be better than anything I've given away on the show thus far, and I've given away pocket knives, hats, belt buckles, and ties. This is going to be good stuff. Jordan, you are our first winner of the night, so congratulations. Okay, guys, here's a question from Jason Y. Jason is asking, are Journe's pieces discounted pre-owned? It depends. Vagabondage, no. They all trade over their retail, whether they are V3s just hitting the pre-owned market, V1s, or V2s. Now, something like a Centigraphe, yes, a Centigraphe, even a black label, will trade for less pre-owned than it trades for new. So consider this watch right here. This is the Centigraphe Souverain, a watch that came out in 2007, quickly won a GPHG award, and replaced the old Octa chronograph. Now, the watch in black label iteration is only made in 18 to 20 copies per year, and it retails at just under $70,000 in platinum. Now, here's the thing. By the way, guys, yes, that Furious Fuchsia strap is factory. This watch will sell for around $40,000 pre-owned, because despite the fact that they're making less than 20 of these a year, the market is satisfied. Whatever demand is, it's marginally less than supply. This is the one to own, and this is the one that I would own. I don't love the Centigraphe Sport, and for me, rose gold is something that's a little bit vintagey, a bit of an old man's watch material. So platinum sizzles, and with a black dial, this is the coolest looking version. Now, you're still getting that signature rose gold caliber, and note the architecture of this with the mainspring barrel at center. It's a mainspring barrel that powers 2 separate drivetrains. I may as well segue from a discussion of the Centigraphe to a discussion of its equivalent from Jaeger LeCoultre and talk about how they basically achieve the same thing with different approaches. Now, I showed you the barrel at center in the Centigraphe. Okay, the barrel powers the chronograph drivetrain and the civil time hours and minutes. Because there's only one barrel, the power reserve is cut from 80 hours when it's running without the chronograph to 24 when the chronograph is running. But because it has two separate drivetrains, there's no loss of balance, amplitude, isochronism, or timing precision, but you do lose the power reserve. Okay, so Jaeger LeCoultre with the Duomet wanted to achieve the same goal, which is no loss of amplitude, precision, or isochronism with a complication running, and they wanted to make sure that they could do that without a loss of power reserve. So what was JLC's solution in 2007? These watches came out the same year. Well, JLC created twin mainspring barrels. So you see the Centigraphe has a single large barrel at center powering both of the functions of the watch. JLC, by comparison, has two separate barrels, each one powering a separate drivetrain, and the escapement acts almost like a traffic cop, alternately indexing power for the chronograph as well as the time. So you could see, winding one crown, the barrels rotate in different directions. When one is winding, the other ratchets, and then the other winds, well, the other ratchets. Just by winding back and forth, you energize both 50-hour power reserves. And you can see that the movement looks a lot like, and I'm going to come back to this watch in a moment, but it looks a lot like its corporate cousin from Saxony. You're looking right here at the Lange und Sohne datograph up-down, 451 parts. This is German silver, or Maillot, as it's known in the Swiss, or I should say Francophone Swiss, watchmaking regions. Back to the Duomet for a second. You can see that same glorious untreated golden material used to create the plates and bridges of the Duomet. The reason is that both the Lange and the JLC are paying homage to pocket watches made in the 19th century. And it was funny, when I met FP Journe, the author of the Centigraphe that you just saw, he knew the name of the valet de jeu artisan who created the double barrel Abauche for LeCoultre that actually inspired this watch. Now let me talk a little bit about this watch, because I'm going to talk about Jaeger LeCoultre now, starting with the big piece. Obviously the Duomet came out in 2007, a revolutionary piece. For the first time, that pocket watch from the 19th century could be serialized in a wristwatch format. Now you can see it's a mono-pusher chronograph. Now you can see right here the column wheel as well as the levers of the system actuating. What sets it apart is not just the twin power reserves, but a rare feature uncommonly seen even on the haute de gamme of chronographs, which is center seconds both for time and for the chronograph. You can see everything that's a rose gold hand on this dial tells you the time. Everything that's blued tells you the chronograph time, so you have superimposed hours and minutes. It's actually a monocounter featuring hours and minutes right here. Then you have center chronograph seconds in blue, and the foudroyant, or the flying seconds, down to 1/6 of a second. You can barely see them, but this is the 2013 model dial with the skeletonized quarter ellipticals and the small, almost imperceptibly tiny power reserve scales, allowing you to see the movement beneath. I'm also taking live questions tonight, guys. I just got back from SIHH in Geneva, so I saw 34 brands, all the novelties. I spoke to the CEOs, I talked with the watchmakers, I chatted it up with the other journalists, and I got some insights into what is going on now in high horology. So if you have questions, I'm going to be talking to everyone through our live chat box. Definitely check it out if you're viewing us on some sort of PC or laptop. Then you have the live chat box, and we can interact. Okay, so question from Horology blog. Is the Vacheron Constantin 56 collection a smart idea for the brand? Will we see a similar trend with Lange? And finally, how was it on the wrist? Okay, first, I think the 56 collection in person is more impressive than it is in the photos. In person, it's richer. The dials feature either applied rose gold indices and numerals with rose gold hands or white gold indices, numerals, and hands. There's double finish. There's a satin finish. There is a granular finish known as opaline. They feel more expensive in the hand than they are. And let's be honest, let's cut straight to the chase. The controversy is the entry-level model, the automatic, or as they call it, the self-winding with date. This is a caliber 1326 based on the Cartier MC 1904. It's made for Vacheron by Valfleurier. The rotor is hand skeletonized and hand finished, and in general, the movement finish is to a higher level than on the Cartier version of the movement, but it's still not Geneva Hallmark, and therein lies the controversy. Vacheron Constantin is targeting an $11,700 price point for this watch, which has inflamed passions both for and against. I'll say this, I don't see the vintage inspiration they're talking about. When I compare the 1956 reference 6073, Google it in a separate window, and the new 56, the resemblance doesn't hit me. But objectively, that watch does feel its price, and maybe even a little bit more. Do any of the 56 models in rose gold for the rose gold prices make sense? No, because once you get into the rose gold triple calendar, you're well past Jaeger LeCoultre Master Ultra Thin Perpetual category. You're probably $6,000 past the Master Ultra Thin Perpetual with black dial. So you could have the Dr. Strange, and you could have a Rolex Explorer 242 pre-owned for the price of the 56 triple calendar in rose gold. But in steel, the entry-level model for $11,700 does not embarrass the brand. Critically, people are forgetting to mention that Vacheron also had great top-end watches this year. The new Métier d'Art Les Arrostiers, the balloons hand-engraved with enamel dial, the date-8, these are perfect watches for a company that wants to compete with Audemars, Lange, and Patek. The new peripheral rotor automatic tourbillon Excellence Platine with platinum threads in the strap, platinum sandblasted dial, peripheral rotor automatic caliber 2160, and a flying tourbillon. That's an amazing watch. So Vacheron did master the entry-level watch and the haute de gamme. It's not like this was a year of famine for fans of complications or the craft arts. Only you can decide whether the 56 meets your expectation for a Holy Trinity brand, but I can say this much up front. Some of the greatest Vacheron watches of all time did not feature manufacturer movements and did not feature the Geneva Hallmark. I don't think this watch embarrasses the company. I think it'll bring new people into the brand who will eventually buy those Grand Complications, Métier d'Art, and Geneva Hallmark pieces. And I also think, and this is probably the greatest compliment I can pay the watch, the entry-level self-winding feels more expensive than it is. I don't believe it's catastrophically compromised. I actually think it's a good piece. Okay, now, jumping back into tonight, and by the way, guys, keep the questions coming. We're going to be going back to the chat box. We're going to talk a little bit more about JLC. This is a watch that came out in 2015, and it marked the end of cycle for the Tribute to 1931 series. Of course, the 80th anniversary of the Reverso in 2011, you had the Reverso Ultra Thin Tribute to 1931. The next year, you had the Reverso 1931 Rouge. The next year, you had the Reverso Bleu Duo, which was the duo face with blue dial. And then in 2014, you had the 1931 Chocolate with Fagliano strap. This watch, the Seconde Centrale, the Grande Reverso 1931 Seconde Centrale, debuted in 2015 as the last of the line, a boutique exclusive in white gold. It also was uncommon for its combination of center seconds and automatic winding. Now, the watch is actually a handsome tribute to a timepiece from 1935, so the 1931 moniker is a bit deceptive. Nevertheless, we're actually in a great position here at Watchbox right now as we have that 1935 watch in our inventory. For me, this is the rare vintage tribute that surpasses the original. White gold, this watch was originally $20,100, and you could see special edition on the back, not limited edition, but limited production. These are rare. Now, it's gray gold, so if you scratch it, there's no milky yellow underneath. It never needs to be plated. This is more impressive on the wrist and aesthetically than the vintage piece. This is a watch I would wear every day, and for just under $16,000, I have to say by the standards of precious metal watches that are not Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, or FP Journe, it has held its value incredibly well. This is one that features the classical unadorned case back like the very first Reversos, so you can either mystify your friends as they try to figure out what you have on your wrist at the company cafeteria, or you can have it personalized with engraving, lacquer, or enamel by Jaeger LeCoultre. Now on the dial side, the presence of the center seconds gives it a more dynamic dial than you get on the traditional 1931s, as I found the Tribute to 1931, even the Rouge, to be a bit sterile without some sort of constant motion. And the Luminova used on this dial makes it a treat to view at night. Plus, it has a little bit of an orange tinge to it, so it's not that trite ecru color, vintage patina style lume. It actually has a little bit of a quirk to it in that it's more orange than brown. So this is a watch I like quite a good deal, and you can even see that the second track at center is raised above the plane of the dial. For me, this is the best of the 1931 series next to the Rouge. And if you can't stand the idea of a dead dial without seconds, then this is the choice. Okay. I also want to give a shout out to our friends who are joining us right now. Okay, Brian Duffy saying, Tim, I loved the colors for the Audemars Piguet Offshore, but do you think AP needs to add a new line? They're like a two-watch company. This is a fact, and it's one of the great controversies that's always surrounded Audemars Piguet in the modern era. They have the Royal Oak and the Royal Oak Offshore, and if they wanted, they could do gangbusters with just those two families. That said, prior to 1993, there was no offshore, and from 1875 to 1972, most of a century, there was no Royal Oak. How did they attain their stature in the industry? Well, they did it with great dress watches finished without compromise, and also with grand complications. Many of them built white label for other houses in the business, who shall, you know, remain nameless. But the bottom line is that AP has big things afoot that you will see in the next 12 months. I'm sworn to secrecy, but if you look at the Jules Audemars collection, for example, AP's dress watch, not much movement on that front for a while. Watch that space at SIHH 2019. And again, I'm skirting legality with my non-disclosures to even say that, but big things lie in store, and they know they've got to really put up a fight outside the sports watch categories. If I had to say they have a bullseye on anyone, they want the kind of hipness, they want the kind of currency and credibility that you see in watches like the FP Journe Chronometre Bleu, but they want it in the Audemars Piguet dress watch lines. And I think we're going to see tremendous progress on that front in less than 1 year. The SIHH 2019 countdown starts here right now. Okay. So now questions coming through, but we've got more to show. We talked about FP Journe complications. We talked about jumping seconds, jumping hours. We talked about foudroyant chronographs. Of course, it all started with the tourbillon remontoir. And after 2003, FP Journe redesigned that watch with a deadbeat seconds complication, a greater degree of refinement than hitherto, a horizontal power reserve rather than vertical, and after 2004, that watch gained the 18-karat rose gold movement. So let's talk a little bit about this Tourbillon Souverain. The first thing that I need to emphasize is that it still features the remontoir d'égalité, the constant force device. What it is that linear spring that you see on the case back. The linear spring and its apparatus index, and you can still see that constant force jump second indicator from the very first watch, still visible on the case back. What you have here is the same constant force device designed to ensure that for most of the power reserve of the watch, right down to about 10 hours, so between 42 hours and 10 hours of power reserve, the same amount of energy is metered in quantized packets to the tourbillon. So it's a constant force device designed to maintain precision, which is absolute accuracy, isochronism, which means the same amount of deviation, and finally amplitude, which is the bounce, if you will, of the balance from side to side. The constant force device and the deadbeat second are interlinked because they are the same operation, they are the same mechanism. Now when the watch gets down to 10 hours of power reserve, the constant force system, the deadbeat, disengages and the second subdial becomes a sweep seconds. That's how you know you need to wind the watch if you're not following the quirky reverse power reserve. Now you can see it's close to zero. What that means is it's been about 2 hours since I wound the watch. When you get to 42, that's the watch telling you that it's been 42 hours since you wound it, not 42 hours of power reserve remaining. Now this is the 40mm case in platinum. You'll note some features of this watch that make it a bit of a standout. Start with the filigree style tourbillon cage and then the continuously rounded specular or optically smooth finish of the single-sided tourbillon cock. This is a higher level of finish than you're going to get in mainstream FP Journe watches. If you look at the Chronomètre Bleu, if you look at the Chronomètre Souverain, they're not finished like that. This watch is a cut above, not just the first FP Journe wristwatch in its modern iteration, but one of the better finished Journe watches that takes longer to create. This is a special timepiece, and that's special within the context of a brand that makes somewhere between, in recent years, 650 and about 900 watches a year. This is a special piece. And I have to say, 40 millimeters in platinum with a solid gold movement, it weighs a ton in the hand. All right. So this is high-rising mention. That FP Journe might be great, it is, but good luck telling time with it. For that, I have to recommend something like the Vagabondage, because you just look at the jump hour and you know what time it is, and then you look at the radial display of the minutes, which is one of the few Journe watches where you have a full dial radial display of minutes. The Vagabondage is actually your watch if you want to tell time more easily with an FP Journe. That or a Chronomètre Bleu, which is the easiest Journe to read, bar none. All right, questions coming through. Hachi Zenki, longtime viewer of the show, saying Piaget made a bunch of colored dial tourbillon watches and tried to pretend the Polo S didn't exist. That's true, and Piaget had a great SIHH. Check out my Instagram, as well as our Watchbox Studios wrap-ups of each brand to see the Piaget marquetry tourbillon with malachite marquetry dial and flying tourbillon. I promise you this is as good as it gets in tourbillon watches SIHH 2018. Chronometry for Nanbertu, Piaget, and Moser. That's where the action was on the tourbillon front. All of them knocked it out of the park. Moving through, we've got more watches to share. Now, I did give a shout out to Vacheron watches that were not finished to Geneva Seal standards, but nevertheless, I mentioned that they are all-time greats and still objectively well finished. And no watch better illustrates that than the circa Y2K Medicus limited edition. Now, this is a watch. I'm going to try to polish everything up for easy viewing. This is a watch that came out around the year 2000, featuring a pulsation scale for a doctor, and it is a very handsome vintage-inspired piece that is 37 millimeters wide and only 43 lug to lug. Now, the dial is designed with beautiful combinations of tones and colors to assist a doctor in gauging the pulse of a patient in conjunction with the chronograph. Now, the chronograph in this watch is known as a caliber 1145. Take a close look and you may notice a family resemblance to a fan favorite from a different brand. Under a different name and a different sky, BOBN rather than Geneva, this movement is known as the Omega 1861 as featured in the Moonwatch. Now that one is the 1873 Lemania, this one's the 1872 Lemania base, the only difference being the 1872 is a twin register and the Omega's 1873 base is a triple register. No Omega Moonwatch is finished like this. This is immaculate. Probably, and I'm not exaggerating here because in my experience, and I've handled thousands of watches, this is probably the best finished cam-style chronograph that you will ever encounter in your life. Geneva Hallmark has nothing on this, and I highly recommend this 90-piece limited series of the reference 47150 to anyone who wants a beautifully finished watch in a distinctive style in the grandest tradition of établissage, which means assembly and finishing of the best parts for luxury purposes. This is a watch that represents Vacheron at its classical best. You do not need the Geneva Hallmark to have a great Vacheron watch. I think the 56 self-winding proves it, and the Medicus chronograph right here definitely does. This is a rare and exquisite Vacheron I would be proud to call my own. Now, all of that said, there are great examples of Vacheron timepieces that are examples of établissage, assembly and finishing of the best parts, that don't even necessarily trade on movement finish, or at least movement finish that you can see. And on that count, I want to show you my all-time favorite, save the New York boutique edition of the same watch, my all-time favorite Vacheron Constantin Overseas. This is from Generation 2. This is the Overseas Perpetual Calendar Chronograph Boutique Limited Edition of 80 pieces, stainless steel case, you can see there's a handsome matte finish titanium Maltese cross bezel, yellow shocks for the chronograph functions. This is a perpetual calendar, chronograph, automatic moon phase. And here's the wonderful thing about this lovely watch. Still 150 meters water resistant despite the through fittings for the perpetual calendar adjustments. And in spite of the fact that it is a modular complication, it's still thin enough that Vacheron was able to fit the internal soft iron cage around the movement, so it is still anti-magnetic. It's a little more than 1/4 the anti-magnetic capabilities of a Milgauss, which is to say quite anti-magnetic by the standards of the industry. So anti-magnetic, water-resistant, screw-down crown and chronograph pushers. This is one on a leather strap that you can easily take in the water. 42 millimeters. It's also wonderfully compact at just under 50 millimeters lug to lug, an easy watch to wear, and only 13 millimeters thick. This is only 1/2 millimeter thicker than a Submariner, and that in spite of all that complication. Now what's inside is known as the caliber 1136 QP. It is a Frédéric Piguet column wheel, vertical clutch, integrated automatic chronograph, beautifully finished, and I've seen these with the case back off. The difference is this one also features the perpetual calendar module. All sorts of complications that you can use every day in a watch that's handsome and versatile and will fit on a 14-centimeter wrist. The timepiece has a steamer trunk worth of accessories, including an accessory alligator leather strap for easy upgrades, change the shoes, change the watch. This is a great candidate for your only watch. If you were wondering, I recommend it. This is proof that Vacheron has both a sense of adventure and the ability to go beyond the pale of what's conventional in high horology. They are not just a dress watch line, and they are not the most conservative of the Holy Trinity. Not when they don't want to be, and this watch is proof. Okay, all of that said, it's not the only haut de gamme sports watch. The grand rival, the Nautilus, is present on the table, and probably like you've never seen it before. But let's give away some stuff. Okay, going to check, and I see, boom, we've got a winner. Dennis K. Powell of Houston, Texas. Dennis, you are a winner. I'm going to send you something delightful and luxurious. It is a mystery prize because we've run out of inventory here at Walnut, but I'm going back to our Bala headquarters tomorrow where we keep the spoils of perhaps 20 consecutive SIHH and Basel Worlds rolled into one big storeroom where I'm going to find you something fitting. So, haut de gamme tonight, and hopefully top shelf and upscale in your mailbox in 3 to 5 business days. Dennis, congratulations. Those of you who are just joining us, if you want to join our raffle, send an email to tim@thewatchbox.com, but send me your name, your mailing address, and your phone number so I can actually send you something. I can't email you a physical prize. This is a mistake many have made. If you've already entered, you're already entered. And yes, previous winners can win again. So I've got you covered. If you're already in the pool, you're good to go. If not, what are you waiting for? All right, jumping back into our pile, I promised you a Patek Philippe Nautilus. Now, remember, guys, this is an interactive show. It's Watches Live, not Watches on Tape, so ask questions away. I have a question from Sebastian P., who's asking, Tim, what's your prediction for Rolex this year? Okay, here's what I think. I think Rolex has quite a... I'm not going to try to predict which model line is going to be completely redesigned, although I think it's safe to say you might see something Cellini. That brand, sub-brand, needs a little bit of action and excitement. But consider this. We now have a number of 39, 40 millimeter watches that are overlapping. There's the Oyster Perpetual 39, there's the Air King, there's the Milgauss, there's the Explorer 1. Those watches are a little bit redundant. I don't think we need all 4 of them. I would expect Rolex to pare down one of those collections, and if I had to guess, I would expect that this might be the last year we see the Milgauss Z Blue. No privileged information. The Rolex ICBM isn't in the air en route to my headquarters. I'm not giving away the game or breaking an embargo. That's just my prediction. And again, Rolex puts the fear of God in both its broadcasters and its retailers. I would never cross the Giant of Geneva. Rolex, you have my undying fidelity, even though I'm mostly a pre-owned guy. Okay. Thoughts on Panerai first moon phase? This is from Brian Duffy. Okay, we're talking about the PAM 920, L'Astronomo, which is a grand complication that you can have completely customized, everything from the color of the dial to the finish of the case to the color of the hands to the color of the superluminova. It's a true grand complication, and you have to have it customized for your physical location because it has the sunset and sunrise time for your locale. That said, I would be shocked if Panerai makes even 10 of these per year. It's for order only, by request, on approval, and it costs over 200,000 euro. All of that said, I still think it's a cool watch, but they're going to make their money with the new Luminor logo collection. The grand complications are the Panem et Circenses for those of us who are aficionados of the grand comps. For everyone else, there's the Luminor logo in Basse or Marina. Okay, now, jumping back to our watches on the table, I promised you a Nautilus like none other. Garrett, I hope you're ready with the macro camera because there's something here that should not be missed, and it's going to be an important detail, tough to find. This is a Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711G. That's the white gold Nautilus, made between 2006 and mid-2009 because, as you can see, it's Poinçon de Genève on the balance cock, so the old Geneva Hallmark standard of finish. Let me show you that real quick so you can see confirmation. Geneva Hallmark, so white gold, Poinçon de Genève discontinued, and on the dial side, check it out at 6 o'clock, Tiffany Co. co-signed. Now, I need to just emphasize how rare this is. You hardly ever see a white gold Patek Philippe Nautilus. In 4 years of working with luxury watches, I've seen 2 in white gold and 2 in platinum, to give you a sense of the rarity. This is the only one I've seen featuring a Tiffany signature. And remember, it's also got the discontinued movement signature with the Geneva Hallmark. And finally, not every Tiffany retailed Patek Philippe features the signature. It's an option. When you buy your Patek through Tiffany, you can have a Patek-authored Tiffany co-signed dial, and that's right, unlike the Rolex series from the late 50s to early 90s, Tiffany did those themselves. Patek does these. Now, this watch is the rarest of the rare. Again, white gold, Geneva Hallmark, Tiffany co-signed, Tiffany retailed, and Tiffany co-signed. You will see more platinum, in my experience, than you will see of the white gold model. But it's still 120 meters water resistant, and I have held in my hand the vulcanized rubber factory accessory strap that you can buy if you want to take this one swimming. Full white gold deployant clasp. This is probably my favorite 5711, and one that you will never see again. For just over $54,000, this is what they call an ironclad investment. This is like buying a inflation-protected treasury. This is as good as it gets, and it's a hell of a wearable watch. It doesn't have a gradient dial. It has a metallic striated gray dial. Consider it anthracite or ardoise, whatever you want to call it, but it is incredibly dynamic in that it does transform as you move it through the light, more like a sunburst than the gradient on the conventional blue-dialed 5711 1A in steel. This is a special watch, a versatile one, stealth wealth, and something only a connoisseur would truly recognize and appreciate. And if you like to fly below the radar and avoid the bombast of the hublotista, this is ready-made for your sensibility. Not that there's anything wrong with the hublotista, but this is the anti-hublot right here. Okay. Jumping straight in, Joshua P. asks, Tiffany signed? Yes, but A, it's an option you get when you buy your Patek from the boutique inside Tiffany's in New York, and B, not everyone chooses the option, and C, it's done by Patek, not by an aftermarket artist or by Tiffany. So this is Patek, an option, and a rarity retailed through Tiffany. All of that wrapped up with the Geneva Hallmark in the white gold case that, again, you never see. Okay, Carlos T. saying he's really late this time. That's all right. We had a bit of a tech hiccup at the beginning of the broadcast. Those who stuck with us, thank you. Carlos, don't worry. We've got plenty of fun stuff left on the table. Okay, talking about the haute de gamme, we've done Switzerland to death so far. So let's talk about Germany, especially Saxony and the town of Glashutte. Now, in 2008, Glashutte Original, the company that grew out of the GUB, the collectivized communist watchmaking aggregate, previously the true heir to the Lange und Sohne legacy, in 2008 they released the Pano Inverse. Now that was the Pano Inverse XL with a spectacular duplex swan's neck fine adjustment mechanism and the balance on the dial side of the watch. In 2014 we got this watch, which is the Panomatic Inverse featuring automatic winding. Rose gold in 42 millimeters. This is a hand-finished watch in as much as that balance bridge is fully hand engraved on both sides with black polished double swan's neck fine adjustment, and it features the style of a pocket watch on the dial side, which is to say the 3/4 style bridge makes up most of the dial. Of course, you have that panorama or oversized date, the panorama datum, the outsized date. It does feature a quick set, and you have a nifty little applied set of hour track and seconds register with applied rose gold indices and beautiful blue luminescent alpha style hands. Also note the blued screws on the dial side. These are not chemically dyed. These are the real thing, heat oxidized. This is a handsome watch that's actually more compact than you might think. Just over 50 millimeters from lug to lug. You can see how short cropped and tightly downturned those lugs are. This is an easy watch to wear on a small wrist, to the point that I would say if your wrist is 14 centimeters in circumference or larger, you're going to wear this one easily, and it comes with a very deluxe full deployant clasp that looks beautiful, weighs a ton, and nicely counterweights the watch if you like to wear it loose. Also note the unusual use of a nubuck finish alligator leather strap. It almost feels like suede or alcantara, but it's a beautiful effect in person, and it feels just as good under the fingers. This is a luxurious and worthy German watch, but it's not the apogee of Saxon watchmaking on the table tonight. No. For that, I'm going to take you to the sequel to a legend and a worthy installment in its own right. If you're familiar with the Dufourograph, the Lange und Sohne datograph in rose gold with black dial that Philippe Dufour bought for himself, one of his only modern watches that he bought for himself. Well, this watch, released in 2012, was the successor to that original. You can see the same dial combo with the shocking contrast between black and rose gold. It never gets old. It's always a bare-knuckle punch to your rods and cones. Absolutely dramatic and striking. Now 41 millimeters with a 60-hour versus 36-hour power reserve. Mechanically, the watch is upgraded over the first gen in every way, including the presence of a nifty power reserve scale at 6 o'clock, because it is, after all, a manual wind caliber. Now, the caliber's been upgraded on the backside. It's still based on the L951 from 1999, but this is the L951 revision number 6. So 451 parts. This is a flyback chronograph. Now, you can see I'm going to actuate some of the functions of the watch so you can see the traditional column wheel lateral clutch architecture operating. Look at the actual clutch, the lateral clutch for the chronograph. It's fully jeweled. Now, this is usually not jeweled on most lateral clutch chronographs. It's usually bushings. So here we have an upscale, low friction, low wear solution to the traditional lateral clutch, and a beautiful column wheel with black polished crenellated caps and topping screw. You can also see the contrast between the silvered metallic of the levers and horns and the beautiful German silver or copper nickel zinc alloy of the bridges and plates. Also note two different finishes to the screws. Those screws that are used for physical assembly are kiln-fired oxidized blue. Those screws that are used for adjustment of the mechanism, either the time or the chronograph, are black polished bare metal. This is extraordinary watchmaking, and I haven't even brought you to the upgraded free-sprung balance, hacking the seconds, stopping the seconds. You can see that the balance, which is immense, about 1/3 the diameter of the whole movement, beating away at 18,000 vibrations per hour when you stop it. You can see it's been upgraded in this generation to variable inertia balance blocks, which allow it to be regulated much more finely, and these make it more impact and vibration resistant. Still not a beater, but a little bit tougher. Now the swan's neck, the black polished swan's neck, now becomes a mechanism for adjusting beat error rather than fine adjustments to the actual timing. And finally, you can see the hand engraved balance cock. Garrett, can we get this one in focus a little bit better? Yeah, you can see each one is hand engraved, so each piece is literally a piece unique, no two exactly the same, because that balance cock is freehand engraved. Finally, note the use of jewels set in screw-fixed chaton on the bridges and even on the chronograph drivetrain, a loving tribute to 19th century Saxon pocket watches. This is as good as it gets from a major manufacturer in Saxony. Take note, We're not leaving you in the dust. Moritz Grossmann, you're just lower volume than we're discussing tonight at this table. But we love you all the same. All right, jumping in, I can see that there is a question about the Nomos Lambda and the Lux. Okay, quick roll back the clock. Over the last 5 years, the Lambda in various iterations has been rolled out as the most expensive Nomos you can buy, short of the Vempe Tourbillon built that was sort of a collaboration between Nomos and Daniel Malkert, the independent watchmaker. But the Lambda is the most expensive Nomos you can buy. It is hand finished. The beautiful, and I want to say it's the Tiefblau dial. I believe it's Tiefblau. It's a dark, pebbly grained blue dial, 80-hour power reserve, hand-engraved balance cock like you'll find on both the Glashutte Original and the Lange we have on the table tonight. It's one of the few Nomos watches that is, in all respects, hand-finished. In white gold, it's my choice with that Tiefblau dial. White gold with that beautiful night blue or dark blue. Absolutely stunning, and it deserves your consideration vis-a-vis other $20,000 haute de gamme. I would even put it up there against the Journe Chronometre Bleu. Many would disagree with me there, but I would actually make that comparison and say that for me, that's a tough decision to make. The Lux is like the Lambda, but it's a tonneau shape. I don't love it as much. But for some, it's going to be a little bit quirkier, and for that reason, especially because it's a tonneau with wire style lugs, it might appeal to a very particular offbeat sensibility, but it's a great watch, like the Lambda, beautifully executed, and it's an echelon above in finish and pricing, what you commonly see in the Nomos catalog. Okay, so Tim, what are your thoughts on the Baume & Mercier Baumatic BM12 1975A movement? Okay, this year, Baume & Mercier launched their first exclusive movement. Yes, it's built for them by Richemont's Valfleurier movement specialist, which is basically a Richemont company in Fleurier that builds movements for those Richemont brands that have not traditionally been manufacturers. So, okay, this new BM12 1975A automatic winding, silicone escapement and hairspring, so robustly anti-magnetic, and it is a 5-day power reserve, and one version of it is also a COSC certified chronometer. All of that's very impressive, and the watch it's in looks great, which is to say it looks like the Jaeger LeCoultre Tribute to Geophysic crosshair dial with a beautiful lacquered white dial. Handsome. If you're going to steal from the best, and they did. Mechanically, you're getting a lot for your money. I checked it. It also has stop seconds. It also has a quick set date. But what really interests me here is that Baume & Mercier have a great point. If you buy this $2,500 watch and then you're served with a $400 service cost every 2 to 3 years, the economics don't make sense. So the unspoken story of this new Baumatic in-house caliber, or exclusive caliber we'll call it, is the service interval, which Baume & Mercier is advertising as 5 to 7 years, and they would like to push it out to 10 years in the future with advances in synthetic lubricants. That might turn out to be the headline in the long term, but to me, this year, it was the buried lead of this story. For those buying that watch in that price range, that is the real selling point. You're going to service this watch half as often. And that's a real worthwhile, value-laden proposition that should form the cornerstone of everything Baume & Mercier does going forward. Technical sophistication, affordable and refined calibers, and long maintenance intervals. They could leave their mark on a facet of customer service and satisfaction that almost no one but Rolex is touching right now. Okay. The question from Sebastian P. If I could only wear and own one watch, what would it be? That's a great question. I would have to say, if I could only own and wear one watch, it would be the Chronometrie Fernand Berthoud FB 1R6 chronometer regulator Fusée tourbillon that came out at this year's SIHH, or it would be my Jaeger LeCoultre Grande Memovox Perpetual Calendar Alarm in Platinum. Probably one of those. Or maybe my JLC Reverso Platinum No. 2 tourbillon. It would be one of those 3 watches, and if I couldn't choose those, I'd pick a Moser Pioneer Perpetual in steel. I think that would be my choice. Okay, so those 4 watches, those would be my choices. Okay, and if I had to pick a watch that didn't cost a fortune, one of the old chronometer certified 40mm Zenith caliber 410 triple calendar chronomasters from the late 90s in steel, black dial. Okay, now, I don't know how we should wrap this show other than maybe the alpha and the omega of my own personal watch collecting habit. Now for me, it always begins and ends with Jaeger LeCoultre, and this year everyone's talking about the Polaris family. A conservative play if you ask me, nevertheless the watches are attractive and priced well. I don't think they're technically ambitious, but I think they'll sell well, they'll help JLC meet their volumes, no one who buys them will regret it, and I do feel like they're keeping the company in touch with its heritage, even if retro tribute watches aren't my personal preference in purchases. That said, in 2002, JLC launched a watch that paid deference to its history while moving the ball in terms of engineering and style, and that was the original Master Compressor Memovox, designed by a woman in her early 20s who became the chief of JLC men's watch design. The watch is visibly a tribute to the Polaris 68. You can see it in the layout of the dial, the internal rotating bezel, the Memovox function, as well as the hands, the indices, and the numerals, but the watch is clearly its own thing with the half-turn JLC compressor crowns that are even color-coded for your ease. 100 meters water-resistant with half a turn, red you're dead, but white you're tight. This is an alarm watch that also features light-duty diving capability, 100 meters water-resistant with a bidirectional internal rotating bezel like the Polaris 65 and 68. I actually prefer that to a chronograph because most of the intervals I time with a chronograph don't amount to an hour or more. I find a dive-style bezel is actually more useful. Add automatic winding, a date, robust water resistance, and an alarm, and for me, especially with the richness of that caseback rose gold medallion from the early Master Control watches, this is a watch that puts it all together. Now, I would be remiss to show you a Memovox and not let you hear a Memovox. So this is the caliber 918. The watch is 41.5 millimeters, very wearable. Let me fire this old girl up. 2002 was a long time ago, 1968 still further back, but the important thing about JLC's best watches is they are mechanically and aesthetically enduring. And I should say, if the current 2018 Polaris collection ages half as well as this innovative piece, it'll be sitting pretty come 2 to 3 decades from now. That said, let's fire this watch up and see what it's got. The thing about the Memovox is that it's always a little bit of a contest between man and machine. I may not have wound this one. Let me wind it up and see what happens. I think that's the problem. I exhausted it. You can generally set a Memovox to within 5 minutes, and when you want to set one off for exhibition purposes, you have to basically eyeball it. That said, boom. Sounds as good today as it did in 2002. Now, for under $7,000, keep in mind, the current Polaris Memovox is a $12,600 watch. This one is under $7 grand. I know which one I would choose if it were my money on the table. And to be honest, this is probably my choice to wear over everything else you see here. If you limit me to what I've got here and just one watch, boom, the Master Compressor Memovox. New for 2002, a timeless watch and a quintessential Jaeger LeCoultre. Guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm going to pick one more winner from our crowd. Let me reach out and touch someone. Again, we're giving out mystery prizes. And all right, Jeffrey G. of Medway MA, you are our last winner of the night. Again, I'm going to rummage through our take-homes from 20 years of trade shows tomorrow at Basel, and, well, from Basel and SIHH in Bala, our other building, and I'm going to send you your loot. They're all going to be great prizes. Everyone who participated in our raffle, you're automatically entered in next week's. This has been Watches Live. All of the watches you see here are for sale. Give my friend George, Brian, Jason, or Josh a call. I'm Tim. This is Watches Live, and thanks for logging on.